Hey, podcast listeners. Dillis Victoria here. Hope all is well. Again, host of What's Your Brand Story. I have an amazing king here with me today that's going to be talking about the Afro and Audio Podcast Festival. He is somebody that I met on Owl. Is this networking in real time app that I think everyone needs to be on if you're an entrepreneur or business owner and so on and so forth. And I know he's going to drop some amazing gems. And I thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Listeners, please make sure you have a notebook and a pen because I know he's going to drop some knowledge. He just likes me like that type of person. So thank you, Talib, for coming on the podcast. I appreciate you.
Thank you. I'm very glad to be here. I'm very glad that we have met and our paths have crossed. That's not by coincidence ever. There's so many people in the world. When two people manage to walk in each other's path, it's for a reason. So I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. So, can you tell everyone who you are and exactly what you do as far as being the founder of Afros and Audio Podcast Festival?
Sure. So my name is again Talib Jasir, and I founded the first multi-day conference formed by Black indie podcast creators and audio professionals. I'm also a four-time author, a life coach dual certified life coach since 2015, and all around visionary and creative. So I love being a creative and I love being in community with other creators. And so that's what started the path of Afros and Audio Podcast Festival back in 2019. And we can get more into that story later. But yeah, it's been now 6 years going strong. And our next one is in October 18th through the 20th.
Awesome. So, how did you come up with the name Afros and Audio Podcast? Like, what was that defining moment? Like, where were you? What were you doing? And was it like, oh shit? Like, what was that for you?
Well, I wanted to be very clear,
Mm-hmm.
who this was for. So that was basically it. And so also I'm a creative, so I have a high value in originality, right? So it could have been anything that had the word Black in it, of course. But people kind of know what you mean. Also, when you say Afros, plus I was born in the 70s, so it only seemed fitting, right?
Yeah,
So
70s.
yes. So Afros and audio. I mean, it's been so long now. I can't remember the complete impetus for it, but
Mm-hmm.
it really was something that once I created it and once I worked with a artist friend of mine to develop the logo for it, it just all worked. It's all fit, and it's something I didn't want to move away from quickly because I did have to pivot with Afros and Audio as a business in and of
Mm-hmm.
itself. But it was something that, unlike most things in life, as a creative, I know how to pick things up and put them down very quickly, especially if it doesn't feel like it's moving anywhere. But this just felt different. And so Afros and Audio has just been a trajectory of life and experience in the business, ever since.
That's awesome. I love that creativity, visionary, because that's who I am. That's all I'm about. So you speak my language.
Word.
So, how has this experience and this business transformed you as a person on an emotional, mental, spiritual level? Like, what transformation have you experienced doing this work that you do?
Well, so much, it's been 6 years now. And when I first started, it was really doing something that I was very used to doing, which was building something, creating something, dope that I wanted other people to experience, but then also going behind a curtain and hiding behind it as well. Just, let it do what it do. And so I first created Afros and Audio because I created a 4-part limited audio drama series called The Fussings Until One of Us Is Dead. Get it? Till death do us part.
Yes.
And so it's a rom-com podcast and it's still available, but I created that. And in 2017, what I was looking to do was find community of other Black creatives that were also into audio dramas, creating them, writing them, directing them, all of that. But it was really hard. It wasn't what it is today, where now you have a whole directory called Black Audio Dramas Exist. And so then it just wasn't there. I was out there with Issa Rae's Fruit and Lorenz Tate's Bronzeville, and then it was me.
Mm-hmm.
And so didn't really find the community that I was looking for. And so I had created it as this online community to, again, provide support and resources and get it back. Didn't go anywhere. So in 2018, I went to meet up with a podcast friend of mine and was like, it's not working. I don't think there's
Mm-hmm.
anybody out there that needs this. And so he said, well, maybe go towards events. And, to this day, I tell the story all the time. I think he meant 2-hour meetup. And I left there like, okay, I'm going to do a 2-day conference. And the problem was I didn't know I'd do a 2-day meetup or two
I get
2-day
that.
conference, right? So that was transformed in me is trying a thing on, and seeing what comes of it, not knowing anything, not needing to know the how, right?
Mm-hmm.
But understanding that there is support out there, right? All I have to do is reach for it and find people who can support in this journey. But also that it's possible,
Mm-hmm.
it's possible. And being a person who has a really, really high value in community, in a way that community gets to access one another and not me building something to access.
Yeah.
Um, I just felt like I was the right person to create and build something that was specific to creatives in this podcasting world, but something that was always about the day after, right? How do we
Mm-hmm.
stay in community? How do we stay connected and collaborating? And so seeing other communities that don't have that value, and other conferences that's not it's not community centered. Why not me? And so this has
Absolutely.
been the journey. Yeah,
I love it. Why not me? I always say that to people when they're like, why me? And I'm like, why not you? You're the
right.
one that was chosen for this and you decided to answer the call. So why not you?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. There's so many people in the world. If you got downloaded something, it could have been any of them, right? Any of them.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
so, yeah, it's yours, and it's yours to realize, and know it or not, there you're enough to make it
Mm-hmm.
happen, or else it would have went to the
Absolutely.
other person. Yeah.
Exactly. So, what would you say sets you apart from everyone else that does what you do? What is that it thing about you that's so special and so unique?
Well, I don't know if it's all special and unique, but I am very much intentional around everything that I do and create. And
Mm-hmm.
so, again, I come from a community. I grew up um, in a rural area, and we called it down the
Mm-hmm.
road because it was down the road from the city, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up on a farm, and my great grandmother and people that were her age and younger, all of them were my aunts and cousins and uncles, right? And I knew what it felt like to be lifted up,
Mm-hmm.
to have something placed on your steps that came from another farm or what have you, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
And before I was born, we existed in a sustenance, lifestyle where they all shared everything, right?
Right.
And so this was the community I grew up in. I knew what it felt like. Um, and so that's what I set out to create, right? A space where people can be fueled by one another,
Mm-hmm.
because it's hard out here. The world don't
Yeah.
love us in a lot of ways, and so we've got to focus up and be able to be there for one another and champion one another and partner with one another, right? If we don't know each other
Absolutely.
exists, how can we work together? So that was
Yep.
really important to me.
You ain't saying nothing but a whole word, and that needs to be on the t-shirt.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, what do people experience when they go to an Afro and Audio Podcast Festival? What is the experience that they get?
Yeah, yeah. So it's just that, right? Community, real community, people who want to see you win. And so, um, again, when I first had the idea and I sat down with some people who I reached for support
Mm-hmm.
around getting it off the ground, I told them it's about the day after, right? We know how to get together and have a good time. That's something that's innate within us, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But how do we
I was like, yes. Oh, my roommate is like, yes.
but how do we continue it, right? Well,
Right.
after it's done, after that the ending Sunday is over, how do we stay in community? And so what we've been able to create is partnerships, sponsors who have had the biggest ROI in anywhere because it's a more intimate setting and people are there with intention.
Mm-hmm.
People who have found their podcast producer and award-winning collaborations. because they have met at the conference, and the intentionality that you put in anything, I'm the source at the end of the day, right? And so I place that intention inside of it, and that's what's created each time. And so people call it the family reunion, people call it the Wakanda of podcast conferences, right? People say is leveling up with their favorite cousin, but that's what the intention is that we feel like we really have each other's best interests, and we can support each other, because what's a world where that can't happen?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, what is a compliment or a review that someone's given you that still really is heartfelt to you till this day about the festival?
Well, I just name some of them, what they call it, but just really feeling like they're at home, like no
Oh,
one. I've been in at conferences myself. I speak a lot, and I've been
mm-hmm,
to some conferences, that are specific to the Black community.
mm-hmm.
And I've been in the room where I'm feel like I'm sitting at the cafeteria table by myself, right? Nobody's
Yeah,
interested, nobody wants to connect, and all that
yeah.
sort of thing. So here we don't experience that, and if I don't see someone in community with them, then I'm going to go do it, right, and bring them into the fold, because that's the intention. And so people who have found best friends, like real true friendships, out of being and connecting at the conference, that means everything, because it was always about the day after.
That's a beautiful thing. I love that. So where do you see the conference or the festival rather being in like 5 years? Like what is that expansion look like for you?
Well, expansion, I really hope that it continues to exist. I just 2 weeks ago, I ended up putting a open letter on LinkedIn about the lack of support around
Wow.
conferences like ours. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Independent podcasters across the board, gender, ethnicities, identities, what have you, make up 75% of the global podcast market. So it's the individual creators who are keeping this industry going, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, and something that I feel like it's my responsibility to share, because disruption is necessary, right? When we've been
Mm-hmm.
socialized in a lot of ways. And so without podcasts, the podcast industry can't exist, which makes us actually the most powerful people in the room. And
Mm-hmm.
so once we get that, then we can begin to demand the respect, right, that we deserve. And so for me, it's about championing and making sure that more podcasts are created,
Mm-hmm.
and that they're sustainable. And so at the conference, it's not just podcast creators, it's also audio professionals, because again, we have to know each other exists so we can work together. But
Right.
there's also support to be had in order to continue the podcast. And so I hope to see more voices in sustainable voices in the industry. But I also think that it's important to understand that podcasting is a viable career choice.
Mm-hmm.
And when you don't know that in your STEM or your STEAM school system or what have you, then once again you get left out of the conversations and or the career path, because there's no candidates, right, that look
Right.
like me or you. And so I want to make sure that young people understand that podcasting is an industry. It's $1 billion industry,
Mm-hmm.
and there's also a lot of transferable skills that come from project management to audio professional and music, film, what have you. Podcasting is an industry where you can build a portfolio, because it's
Yeah.
low barrier. There is no
Mm-hmm.
other place that you can publish and distribute your voice and your ideas and your thoughts and your perspectives. Um, that you all you got to do is go buy a microphone and push record on something.
Right.
Um, that's what podcasting is, and so why it's so important that more of us get into it.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. I go into like different networking spaces, and when I tell them I'm a podcaster, they're like, oh my gosh. And, how does that work? And I always wanted to do it. The question I ask is, what's stopping you?
Yeah, yeah,
What's stopping you? Is it the fact that I said, no podcast is perfect. We're always going to have our hiccups or hangups and so on and so forth, but just start. And you never know whose life you're going to touch. You never know who you're going to connect or meet. You just don't know. So always go
absolutely.
ahead and just do it. Because
Yeah,
I probably changed
absolutely.
my podcast like 3 different times.
Yeah, it's your prerogative. Like, you get to do that. This is a creator
Mhm.
space. And so just like an author, some of them write one book, most of them don't, right? A singer doesn't drop one album and keep it moving, right?
Right,
Um,
exactly.
yeah, yeah. So it's like you keep going, you create something new. You do it
Hmm.
as many times as you want, because you get to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Agreed. Speaking of author, this is one of my books that I wrote.
Okay.
It's
Nice.
called 365 Days of Affirmations for the Mind, Heart, Body, and Spirit. So when you were talking about a book, I'm like, I need to do the little exercise I do with everyone else. So
Yeah.
give me a number from 1 to 365, and I'll read an affirmation to you.
Okay. 222.
222. I see that number a lot.
Yeah, me too.
So it says, I am my greatest accomplishment, and I honor myself by living my best life without any regrets.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice. I like
That's
it.
day
Yeah.
222. So that's the affirmation for you for today.
Okay. All right. I receive
Yeah,
it. Thank you.
of course. So, what is your definition of a brand story? What does that mean to you?
Well, I think your brand story, I think it's twofold, right? I think it sometimes we have to bridge a gap from who we are, right, to who we want to be or get to be. And
Hmm.
so it could be one of those stories that challenges you to step into, right, to lean into what does make you great, what does make you, where your skills are best shown off.
Hmm.
But it also, for me, is should be very genuine, right? If I created this conference and it wasn't community first, I wouldn't know what to do with it, to be honest with you, right? I think in this great simulation that we call life, um, it's the people, right? The
Hmm.
people are real. The connections are real, right? And so, as long as we have each other, we can continue to push this forward and to
Hmm.
push ourselves forward. And so I think that the brand story, definitely you want it to be authentic and genuine to who you are and who you can keep up with, right?
Hmm.
You don't want to start something
Exactly.
that you can't, the representative can only stay for so long, right?
Oh,
You
Lord, talk
forget it.
about it.
Yeah. So, but it also gets to be something that leads you into the next possibility for yourself, right? That
Absolutely.
causes you to stretch and to
Hmm.
see yourself in a different light in ways that you may not have seen yourself when you started, right? There's no finish line to this thing until you're out,
Absolutely.
right? So,
Absolutely.
I really believe I have this philosophy. I think of myself as a philosopher, but as you manifest your vision manifests you, right? You don't know. You can only see yourself as far as you see yourself in this moment, right? But the more that you step into it, there's people, right? I didn't know you until last week,
Right.
right? And now I get to sit here, sit and speak with you. But that was me. If I was on the sidelines, it doesn't happen, right? And
Hmm.
so, 5 years ago, somebody was like, "You be a podcast guest." I'm like, "Hell no!" Like, I don't know how to talk to people. What you talking about? you know?
Exactly.
Right. So it stretches you, and you continue to see how far that you can go.
Hmm.
Actually, but you can't know, right? You can't know. So you just
Right.
lean into it, and you begin to manifest that first vision, and allow it to do what it do.
Right. I love the fact that you said to lean into it, because I'm a big advocate of leaning into what makes me uncomfortable, leaning into what makes me afraid, leaning into questioning myself, leaning into a lot of self introspection, and making sure that I'm always investigating how I'm feeling
Hmm.
despite how uncomfortable I am. So leaning in is something that I love to do, to the fact that I feel like I've mastered it, and people get
Yeah.
uncomfortable. I'm like, no, 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 I'm okay being uncomfortable. Let me be uncomfortable.
Okay, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's important. It's important. Our I am beliefs are 100% up to us, right? They're
Yes.
inventive and they're creative. And so that's why I love what you said about doing your podcast as many times as you have, because
Hmm.
it's yours, right? You get to do that,
Absolutely.
right? You get to
Absolutely.
invent and create and define and redefine yourself as many times as you want. Life is not as short as they say it is, right? It's the longest thing you're going to experience. So you might as well be in pursuit of what it is that you want to experience, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was talking to a friend of mine, and we were talking about time being a commodity. Because yes,
Hmm.
even though it's as long as you want, at the same time, it's just like time is to me is more valuable than money, than currency, and that fact that who we give access to and how much time we spend with people, how much time we spend doing things and not doing the things that we absolutely love and not taking a leap of faith. Like it's like a fine line between that. You know what I'm saying? Because
Yeah, yeah.
if you're not loving what you do, if you're not working in your purpose, like it's something that, because I know for me, I almost died in 2011, and I had fibroids and I had to have surgery and
Mm,
it killed
okay.
me, and I was on a deathbed going, I shoulda, coulda, woulda, and I didn't. So time is something that is such a valuable gift to me that I do my best not to waste it on things that are not serving whatsoever. Even though it's long, but at the same time it's kind of short, because I remember being 37 blink and I'm not 47. I'm like, damn, what the hell did time go?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's all perspective, right? And
Right.
so when I say that, I truly mean if it's the longest thing you're going to experience, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that it could is it's not promised at
Right.
any moment, right? And
Right.
so that means being in pursuit. Just to your point, being in
Yes.
pursuit of what it is that you want to experience.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as often as you can, right? This world is full of distractions.
Yep.
That's it's a thing with it. Um, but being intentional really changes the game for you, because when you're being intentional about what you consume, what you create, how you contribute, what you experience, then I just think it accelerates your life a lot more than just kind of being that passenger, right? Not knowing where to go from here, how to start,
Mm-hmm.
which is all things that happen. We've been
Mm-hmm.
socialized, we've been educated in a system that doesn't, that wants us to be conformed
Right.
and to follow a path, right? But there's this opportunity to begin to do the work, the self work, to
Yep.
become self aware, right, and
Mm-hmm.
to begin to recognize, okay, I don't like that.
Yep.
I don't want to be that anymore. I don't want to do that anymore. And
Right.
let's get intentional about what it is that you do want.
Absolutely agreed. So can you tell us the name of your books, and if we can, where we can find it? Is it on Amazon? Like, where are your books?
Sure, sure, sure. So my first two books are Advisor to the Throne, and basically that like I said, I've been a dual certified life coach since 2015. My first one came out in 2015. The second one in 2017 is two volumes
Mm-hmm.
of that. They're on Amazon. Very short to the point, because attention spans have changed. They have
Mm-hmm.
evolved, right? And my third book is Say Less, Call It Justice, and that's a book of like I would call them haikus, but they're not. Anybody who actually knows what haiku would be like, they ain't no haikus.
Right.
But they, but they're short, short form, just statements and things that I believe, things that I want folks to understand when it's about disrupting, these socialized
Mm-hmm.
beliefs, these institutionalized beliefs that we have. So it's a lot of different messages in there, that are meant to entertain, but also push people forward, move people forward. Um, and think. I think we
Yeah.
have a lot of people who do not access critical thought in a lot of
Mm-hmm.
ways. And so I think the opportunity for us to be more critical in the things that we have been taught to believe or think can support us.
Mm-hmm.
And so my in my last book, Take What's Yours, Becoming a Liberated Creator, that
Mm-hmm.
is on its way to shelves. But all of those other books can get be found on Amazon right now
Good
and on
stuff.
my
I love it.
websites. Yeah, thank you.
Good stuff.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you so much. Can you tell everyone where they can find you, where, the
Sure.
date that you have going on with the festival, all that good stuff?
Absolutely. Okay, thank you. So you can find me. I'm on Instagram at Talib Jasir. That's TALIBJSIR. I also have a website, talibjasir.com. Afros and Audio is at afrosandaudio.com, and that's ANDAFROSANDAUDIO.com. And we're also on Instagram, Afros and Audio. So the conference is this October 18th to the 20th in Baltimore, Maryland, at the Reginald F. Lewis Museum, and it's our 6th year. So if you are available and you live in the area, and you want to experience a community of creatives, right? Because for pod curious folks too, people who've been wanting to get into podcasting but haven't, this is the place for you. Seasoned podcasters, audio professionals, tech tech experts, marketers. This is the place for you. You'll enjoy it.
Good stuff. And I'll make sure that I put all of the information that you just said in the description box. of the
Okay.
YouTube and the Spotify.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
So
Sounds
everyone
good.
got it. Yeah. So thank you so
All
much
right.
once again. Okay, podcast listeners, you heard it here first. If anybody is in the DMV area, Baltimore area, Maryland, all those places there, make sure that you check it out. You have ample time to register and to go and be a part of the community and the family of cousins and all that good stuff, and probably be invited to the barbecue. We just don't know. So thank you once again. I appreciate it. Dills Victoria here. What's your brand story? Till next time. Talk to you guys soon.